Hi, my name is Alicia Smith, and tonight I'm going to be walking you through how I would assess a student if they were struggling in your class. My example today will be by a student named Sydney, who is 8 years old and in 3rd grade. The test that I will administer tonight will be the elementary spelling inventory, the San Diego quick assessment, and my writing sample. Also, the other test that I would have administered would be a running record, write all the words you know, the names test, what interests you, inventory, comprehension, retelling test and assessment sheet, and the clause test. These tests together will help me give a better picture of my student and what their learning needs are. Before I begin my assessments, I need to make sure that I'm creating an optimal background for my student. So I should know my student. I want to make sure that I am following their body cues, making sure that they are ready to learn. If they have something that's going wrong or need, like they're hungry or something's upsetting them, then it's probably not the best time to administer the test. You have to make sure that they are ready to learn and ready to do their best on the assessment. Otherwise, the assessment may not give you the information as accurately as you need it to be to provide a plan for them. So the first thing you need to do is making sure that their basic needs are met and that they are comfortable with you administering the test. The test really should be done by their primary teacher. So the primary teacher is somebody they've already built a connection with and they have a rapport with. The primary teacher should also, at that point, understand some things and be able to read their body cues to understand if the child needs a break, if the child is getting the information correctly, or if the child needs something. While administering the test, as you move along, a teacher needs to make sure that they are paying attention to a couple things. They should follow the pace of the student. If the student is slowing down or indicates that they need a break in any way, stop, take a break, change the conversation, refocus, get their mind back ready for track. If you need to stop and finish your assessment on another day, then that'll be better for you to get the clarity that you need for your student. So make sure you are following along with not just their verbal words if you ask to make sure that they're okay, but also their body language to make sure that their body isn't telling you that they're done. Now that you know that the child's needs are being met, we want to take a look to make sure that when we're administering tests that we take a full range of tests. We want to make sure that we include their interest and motivation, phonemic awareness, phonics, spelling, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and writing. This will give you a bigger picture of what they need for language arts. For these tests tonight, I'm going to walk through 3 different examples. The first example will be the elementary spelling inventory test, followed by the San Diego quick assessment. And the third test I will administer tonight and walk through is going to be the running record. For the first test I'm going to administer for the spelling inventory, students should not study the words in advance of the test. Assure the students that this is not for a grade, but it's to help plan for their needs. You can say something on the lines of, I'm going to ask you to spell some words, spelling them the best you can. Some of the words will be easy to spell and some may be difficult. When you do not know how to spell a word, spell it the best you can. Ask students to number their paper 1 through 10. Call each word aloud and repeat it. Say each word naturally without emphasizing phonemes or syllables. Use it in a sentence if necessary to be sure students know the exact word. Sample sentences can help the student make connections to the words. After you're done administering the inventory, you can use the guide or a guide to chart their mistakes to help you get a clearer picture of what their needs may be. So let's take a look at Sydney's spelling inventory. This is Sydney's inventory spelling test. The first word is bed. The teacher may say, number 1, bed, bed. It is time to go to bed. Number 2, ship, ship. The ship sailed on the sea. The teacher would continue the test for the rest of the words. Doing too many words could be overwhelming to the students, so stick to around 10 words or less depending on the age. When students are done with the test, ask them to collect the test and put their pencils down. When you do so, make sure you encourage the children and thank them for doing their best and for sitting patiently while you collect the rest of the test results. When you go over the results independently without the student, you can look at each word to give you some clues as to some possible areas that they may need to improve upon. If we look at Sydney's test, we notice that she did spell bed correctly. Her B is the right way. Her D is the correct way. She also spelled ship and win correctly. If we look at number 4, lump, she has the U sound confused with an O. So we want to pay attention to that and see if there's a pattern. We also notice that for number 5, for float, she has F-L-O-T-E instead of F-L-O-A-T. So we might have to practice our vowel rules here, especially with possible silent E's and confusion regarding that. We go through her test and we notice that train is spelled correctly, but when we get to place, we have an S versus a C, which is a common mistake at this age. Number 8 is correct, drive, and we have some confusion on bright. We have a different spelling versus the GH sound. We also notice for number 10, for shopping, we might need to review the double P rule. So these are some things that we should analyze with Sydney's test, considering that she only got 5 out of the 10 spelling words correct. The next test I want to look over is the San Diego Quick Assessment Form. This form measures words out of context. So this is the students reading lists of words without sentences to help guide them and give them clues to the reading. To administer this, you're going to begin with a list that is 2 to 3 levels below their reading level or below their grade level to assess them, to give them a little bit of confidence as they go along in this exam. When you give the students the material of the list words, make sure you have your own separate recording sheet. You're going to use the paper, an extra paper, to cover up the word lists that are not being read at the moment. For instance, if you notice here on this form, Sydney is in 3rd grade. So we're going to start here at either first grade, or possibly even under PB here. When you're administering the test, you want to make sure that you can give some students some confidence and make sure that you are following their pace as we go along. When I administer this, I want to use a pencil so that you can reuse the test at a later date. If the student mispronounces a word, you can write it down next to the word to give you clues on how you can help the child with their reading, to see how they're decoding words. Encourage your student to read the words that he or she does not know so that you can identify the techniques that they're using for that word. Wait no longer than 5 seconds before moving on to the next word. When you're interpreting the results, you're going to look at each list that's completed by the student, and you're going to score it based on the number of errors. If they've had 1 error, then they're at an independent level. If they have 2 errors, then they're at an instructional level. And if they're at 3 errors, they're frustrated, so that's a frustration level. You want to see where the child is in order for you to assess their learning needs. So let's take a look at Sydney's learning needs. Let's take a look and see how she's done on her assessment. If you notice here, they started with primer. All the words that Sydney did are correct. When we go to first grade, she did thank you, tank, instead of think. So we have the TH sound here. But she seems to have gotten the rest of the words correct. When we're looking here at level 2, you notice that she has some errors here, but it looks like she's self-corrected. If she's self-corrected, you can put a SC for self-correct next to the words. That lets you know that they may have mispronounced it at first, but they're able to decode and correct their mistakes, so they're able to understand what the word means. Don't count that against them. Keep that in mind, though, if there's a pattern with those. So if we noticed here, Sydney has a few mistakes. When we go down to the third grade reading list, we've noticed that there are a lot more mistakes, and you can see a little bit in her reading pattern. If you notice that you see the M, she is starting to say the words using the context clue of the M, the letter that it starts with. So she is using some of the decoding strategies she knows in order to determine what the word means. Once a student has reached a frustration level, stop the test. There is no point in having them move on to a harder reading level when they have already indicated that they have 3 or more errors of frustration. Check on your reader at this point. Make sure that your student has all of their needs being met and you're following their pace. If they're body cues or they're asking for a break or you just need to change the dialogue and have a conversation, please do so. It's most important that your child's needs, all their needs, are being met, or your test results will not be conclusive the way that you need them to be. The final assessment I'm going to discuss today is about how to do a running record. A running record is really important because it allows you to really focus in and analyze the 3 cueing systems to see how the child is decoding, whether they're doing it semantically, syntactically, or graphophonically. You can break down to see where their needs are. When you complete a running record, you give a student a copy of their own reading sheet, and you have an identical one next to you. If you noticed along, you can just make a little tick mark as the student looks and reads through the words. If they make an error, note it above the word. For instance, if we look at this running record, it's all the same to the clam by Shel Silverstein. You may notice that Sydney's mistake here is she said ocean floor instead of oceans floor. Simply just mark the words above the word that was incorrect so you can see if there's a pattern. You want to check to see if the meaning is still the same in the sentence, if it makes sense, if she's following the patterns with letters that start with the same words to decode or not. While we're doing the running record, we want to make sure that we're marking anything that we see that can help us to figure out what cueing code the student is using to determine what the word is. So as we go along, not all running records will give you the same results. This is why it's important to really know your student, to see what kind of cues you know that they're using. Sometimes the reading can be a little bit ambiguous, whether there's numbers to it or whether or not you are not sure if they're using graphophonics or whether they're doing semantics or syntactic moves to decode. And if you have enough of that information from your running record, you can help narrow down the cueing systems that they're using. If we notice, if we go down in Sydney's assessment here, you might notice that she went bury instead of berry. So we're going to note that down here. We're going to make a little notation above berry. We notice that all the words that she's getting correct, muck, she has the U, she's missing the C sound, the CK sound. So when we're looking at this, some of this will give us clues to whether or not Sydney understands the context of the reading. This same poem we can use to help determine a few other things later on in our reading. We can ask and find out whether she understood the context by reading it and analyzing an answer sheet after that. And we can look at it for patterns and clues to see what Sydney's needs are. A few more things I want to add before we're done with this recording. Reading should be fun for the student. Make sure you're having fun along the way and make sure the student is enjoying themselves. And when you're setting the environment, do your best to make sure that it's in a nice, quiet place where the student can actually focus on the words and the assignment that you're asking, because it's very easy for students to get distracted in the middle of an exam. Also, don't let them know that it's an exam. Make it fun. Tell them that you're just there to see what their needs are and have some fun reading together. It should be a fun experience, not a daunting one. So, good luck.